I want to start, with kind of getting into the specifics, because we've just been kind of talking about the general feel that we've gotten out of this weekend. But I really want to start with the position that I think was probably the most emphasized this weekend, and that was certainly the offensive line. I I think Clemson, the hire of Matt Luke, I think it has been something that's been understated, and we've talked about it, just throughout this offseason, how little attention it got, like pretty much after it happened. And I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a hire it was.
Yeah.
Um, but I think he really got to show his stuff this weekend. Matt Luke did, and
Yeah.
his recruiting prowess made an impression on a lot of these guys. And I think, and obviously, one of them just committed today, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But I want to start with the guy that every Clemson fan is thinking about. Everybody is kind of talking about the highest profile, player on campus this past weekend, and that's David Sanders.
Hmm.
Um, I I think the weekend just reinforced everything that David Sanders and his family loves about Clemson. You know, I I don't think that this means that he's about to commit or anything like that.
Yeah.
He still plans to take his official visits, and I know that's something that Clemson fans are kind of worried about, and honestly, understandably so. Um, but I think Clemson did reinforce their positioning as far as where they stand in the pecking order. I think they are very much one of those teams that has a really good shot at landing him. Um, and I think, like I said, this weekend, I think a lot of what happened this weekend just kind of reinforced everything that they kind of got to know as he visited, in the past couple of months, and now he really got to see the all of it in action. All the coaches, they spent a lot of time with him. Like he had multiple coaches with him at all times, and
Hmm.
so they really did put on the full court press and kind of let him know that, hey, you're the guy, you're the
That's right.
guy in
Yep.
this class. Um, and so I think they did a really good job. I think his family is going to take it all in, and they're going to come to a decision after he's gone through his official visits, and he's going to continue on his timeline. But I think Clemson will be one of those teams at the finish line that has a really good shot at landing him. And I think, um, you still got to watch out for Ohio State. Still got to watch
Yep.
out for Tennessee. Georgia's
Hmm.
hanging around there as well, but I think Clemson has positioned themselves well. So we'll kind of see how it plays out in the coming months. Well, in the coming month,
Yeah.
um, but I like where Clemson sits, and it's really just about I think they've done all they can as far as putting their best foot forward and letting him know what a priority he is and what he means to this staff, this program. Um, and so we'll kind of see whether that ultimately sways him in Clemson's direction. But like I said, there's a lot of factors that are going on in this decision.
Yeah.
Clemson does have the proximity and the familiarity advantage, and Tennessee as well to a degree. But Ohio State, they also, they have a big stick on the recruiting trail right now,
Yes.
for reasons that you can probably deduce. And so that's a tough pull. I mean,
Yeah.
it's when you're a 17-year-old kid, like those are 16, 17-year-old kid, those are things that it could be life changing. So
100%.
although David Sanders is a guy that has said throughout the process that proximity and staying closer to home is a big deal. Sometimes there are ways to circumvent that and make him change his mind a little bit. So we'll see how that kind of plays out as he continues to take these official visits. Um, Another guy I wanted to hit on is Massachusetts offensive lineman Hardy Watts.
Yep.
Um, 6'5", 300 pounds, like almost as big as Rowan Byrne, who we'll talk about later. Um, I think Clemson did a fantastic job with him. I think it's a. I think Clemson. If I really had to say, I'd say they lead right now. They still have to contend with Michigan, who obviously has a pedigree, putting offensive linemen in the league right now.
Absolutely.
But again, their head coach just left, and that's kind of a. I mean, that's a selling point in Clemson's favor. The stability and obviously the new hire of Matt Luke and his track record certainly helps as well. And so Hardy Watts is a name that I think all Clemson fans should know and kind of keep an eye on. Nasty offensive lineman. Just he's huge, first of all, but he plays with so much violence. Like it's kind of scary. Like when you put on his tape, like, and I think that's kind of you're seeing the shift in philosophy with Matt Luke as far as just the sheer size of the guys they're recruiting this go around. And kind of trying to remold and reshape the build of this offensive line group. Did you have any like sort of thoughts about kind of how this offensive line board is shaping out? Whether it's about David Sanders, Rowan Byrne, Hardy Watts, and Max Buchanan, and a couple other names. So, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, look, man, at the end of the day, you are, as you stated previously, you're starting to see Matt Luke work, right? Like you're starting to see why it was such a huge deal when Clemson was able to pluck Matt Luke out of retirement and bring him into Clemson as the offensive line coach. And as he stated, he's not really interested in getting back into head coaching or anything like that. So that could mean that Clemson has this guy for a long time. And you're starting to see his recruiting prowess. You hit on David Sanders. I think Clemson made an amazing push for David Sanders this weekend. I think they did about as well as they possibly could have done. They did everything that you could want them to do. Now the ball's in David Sanders' court, right? I think they reminded David Sanders of why he's considering Clemson, right? Why Clemson would be a good decision for him to commit and play the next 3 to 4 years of his college career, right? I think they reminded him of just how special of a place Clemson is. And, oh, by the way, we have Matt Luke, who has a proven track record now of producing elite level offensive linemen and getting them into the NFL, not only just getting them drafted in the NFL, but getting them drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, right? So he's got a proven track record of that. I think you pushed for him really well. You mentioned the landmines that are out there for David Sanders. Sometimes you can't say no when the money's big enough, and he will have money thrown his way. But at the end of the day, if you're a Clemson fan, you really can't worry about that. You already know Clemson is not going to get into this bidding war over David Sanders. They want him. They're just not going to do that. But I think that Clemson fans can rest assured, not that he's going to commit to Clemson at all. That's not what I'm saying. But rest assured that everything that could possibly be done to convince him that Clemson is the place for him was done this past weekend. And he now has to make that decision for himself when he goes to Tennessee, Ohio State, and these other official visits that he's got scheduled. This offensive line recruiting class is really shaping up really nice. It's you're seeing the pieces really come together. You're seeing guys come to Clemson for official visits now, not committed yet or anything like that, but you're seeing guys come to Clemson that a year ago, 2 years ago would have never given Clemson an official visit. They just wouldn't have, right? Because of a lot of different reasons. And Matt Luke being probably one of the biggest reasons right now, right? So I just think you could see the push. We went over the list last week of all the offensive linemen that were going to be in town. And I think if you're a Clemson fan right now, you have to be excited with the shift that we are starting to see along the offensive line and be excited for the future and what I expect Matt Luke to be able to create as the Clemson offensive line coach, I think it's going to be special.